guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well at the moment. I'm back with another video for EDS Awareness Month. If you watched my last one, you will have seen that I have ended up splitting my content into two videos because I had too much for one video, which is great. So yeah, I'm back with the second one. As the video goes on, I will change my clothes and everything because that was filmed beforehand, so apologies that it's a little bit all over the place, but hopefully you won't mind. So yeah, in today's video I thought I would include some of the footage where some of my fellow zebras talk about daily life with EDS, talk about the positives and the negatives, and also why raising awareness is so important to them. Like with the last video, I've got some great people contributing, all of whom have EDS. They come from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and I just want to say that I'm really thankful to them for taking part and helping to raise awareness. So I hope you'll enjoy this video and that it will help you to learn a little bit more about EDS and what it's like to live with it, and yeah, to help raise awareness during EDS Awareness Month. The next question is, how does EDS affect your daily life? And I mean, EDS has a huge effect on my daily life, and it's difficult to know because I've always had it, quite how much it affects me, because you obviously adapt to certain things. But for example, I am on crutches at the moment. I've had surgery, which is kind of partly related to my EDS, but before the surgery I would use a stick, but I also use a wheelchair when I go out, so it massively affects, you know, my mobility. It affects my ability to just do stuff around the house, so it affects, you know, like my independence and things. I need a lot of help with you know, like washing, like personal care type stuff. I also really struggle because of the chronic fatigue to do general household like tasks, so things like doing the washing, cooking, housework type things. I need quite a lot of help with them, and I guess all of that has meant that I still live with my parents. So I'm 31 and I still live with my parents because I just don't think I would be able to live on my own unless I had quite a lot of care. It's affected my career. I had so many ideas of what I wanted to do. I wanted to study medicine or do something in the medical field, and I've just kind of had to accept that because of my symptoms it just wouldn't be the right career for me. So I've had to kind of change what I do in that respect. It affects my ability to go out and socialise, because I'm not always well enough to be able to do that. A lot of the time I'm housebound, or I only leave the house for medical appointments, so that makes having any kind of social life quite difficult, and any kind of romantic life just impossible, it feels like. And it makes it quite, I don't know, I feel that it's made it difficult to find a romantic partner because they kind of see all of the stuff that you kind of have going on, and for a lot of people it just puts them off, which is really sad because, you know, I would love to be able to have a partner and a family, and at the moment it feels very, very far away. And then also it affects my mental health massively. Not having a diagnosis had a huge effect on me, but even now that I've got a diagnosis, you know, trying to cope with the symptoms and the way that it affects my life can make me very depressed, very anxious. Just being ill can make you anxious because you have all these horrible symptoms and you feel very out of control of your body, so it affects that kind of stuff as well. I have to sleep a lot. I need to nap during the day, so it affects my productivity. Yeah, it has a huge effect on your daily life.
The main way it affects my daily life is that I just can't do very much most of the time. I have such limited energy, that pacing and prioritising has become really important. I can't actually do much in a day. I can't really work full time anymore. I can only do things in sort of short bursts and then I'll need a rest. So managing my activity levels is really important. Doing enough exercise to keep my muscles strong, but not doing so much that it pushes me into a flare up. Getting up in the morning is tricky. I wake up and regardless of how well I've slept or how much I've slept, I wake up feeling like there's a lead weight on top of me. My body just feels so sore and so heavy. And it takes me quite a while to get going. I normally just let myself rise quite slowly. You know, I feel like I'm awake before my limbs are awake, so I have to give them a little bit of time to catch up. Sleeping can be an issue as well. I mean, I generally fall asleep quite easily because I'm so fatigued. But it can be quite tricky to get comfortable. I do have to spend a bit of time sort of propping myself up with different pillows and things, just to make sure my joints are supported in bed.
It affects my life 24/7, all the time. There's not a minute goes by that doesn't affect me. It's not one thing, it's another. And I'm a full-time wheelchair user. I'm attached to all these different tubes constantly. The lack of understanding and awareness is really frustrating.
EDS affects my daily life in just every way possible, and I look at a typical healthy person that I know who maybe gets up at like, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning, has a shower, dries the hair, puts the makeup on, gets changed, goes to work, works, comes home, cooks, does stuff, and I don't understand how that is possible. I can't imagine how that is physically possible. Because for me, a typical day is I wake up feeling terrible because I've had a terrible night's sleep, because restful sleep seems completely elusive. And then it takes me all my time to just do the basic things. I mean, it's like if I have a shower one day, that means I won't be able to do other things. You have to like ration how you do things, and you know what would be a low energy activity for most people is a high energy activity for me that might take days of bed rest to recover from. And in that time, I won't be able to cook food or wash properly, which is disgusting, but it just affects every single aspect of my life.
Well, apart from the blacking out in pain several times a week, I have to use a wheelchair when I'm out and about, and I also have to use crutches, and I have to use a lot of medical aids, and I have no real structure in my life, mostly because I can't decide something in any sort of way in advance, because I'll be halfway through something I love, like this hobby which I adore going to, and then something will happen, like a pain flare, or a really bad dislocation, or my spine, which is unstable, goes out, and suddenly I have to return home. So it really affects every part of it. I can't cook for myself, I can't clean, I can't do anything like that.
It's very unpredictable, so you don't know really from one day to the next how you're going to be and what you're going to be able to do. And you have so many hospital appointments. As I said, it's a multi-systemic disorder, so it affects so much of your body, but every consultant looks after their part. You literally do collect doctors. It's like a shopping list. And it's just all the many symptoms that you have to live with. And like, to go out anywhere, if we want to, you have to do so much before you go. and it can take hours, and sometimes you can be all ready, I can get dressed, and you're really excited because I'm actually going to get out of the house, and then I've taken up all my energy getting dressed, having medication given to me which can knock me out as well, and then you can't go out. It's really disappointing, and sometimes you just have to accept that. It's hard. I'm was a really active on-the-go person. As I said, I worked as a special needs teacher. I used to do acting, modelling, dancing, artistic roller skating, and I'd love to be able to do all that again, but obviously you can't, and it's really difficult on a day-to-day basis. It's really hard, and you have to learn to live with your illness and try not let it take over, because it can. And at the moment, I know everybody's been in lockdown, but for us, this is quite normal. You know, I've spent a year in hospital before, 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, again and again and again. And if I'm not in hospital, then I'm at home, but often I'm really not well enough to go out anywhere. And as I said, I can use up energy just getting ready, and then we can't do anything else. So yeah, that's really how it affects your life.
There's been a lot. It's affected a lot. It's affected every aspect of my life so far. I didn't find out that I kind of knew what it was, and thought that this was what it would be. But I didn't get diagnosed for a very, very, very long time. And there's still very little out there for resources. I was basically told to brace as much as I could. I have braces for pretty much everything. I've used walking aids for 3 years as a result of 3 failed hip surgeries. Over half of the surgeries I've had have failed. It's affected every part of my life.
My EDS influences every second of every day. I want to say it doesn't, but if I'm being honest, it does. Because I have constant nausea and near constant pain, and at some point every day, both of those things, even if only for a short time, and sometimes for a long time, they've just become unbearable. And the fatigue is to the point where there are days where I'm alright, fairly alright, you know, but there are most days where I do what I have to do, which is work full time so I can try to pay for my medical care, and then I spend the rest of the time in bed. And so it's really, really impacted my social life and the life I wanted to have.
Next question is, what is the worst thing about having EDS? And it's very hard to pick one worst thing. I guess one of the worst things is the symptoms and feeling ill and in pain all the time. Obviously that's just not nice. It's not nice to feel unwell and to be in pain, and to have that happening all the time with no end is exhausting. But I think another kind of worse thing is just the effect that it has on being able to live a normal life and to do the things that you want to do. Because I think, I would say the worst thing is my brain is okay. I think, my brain thinks normally it is the same as other people, of my age, and it has all these ideas and dreams and things that it wants to do, but it doesn't match up to your body. And I think that is really frustrating, because it's like you're trapped inside your body basically, and your brain is like wanting to do all these things, but you just cannot keep up with it. And I think that is the most frustrating thing, because there's so much I want to do, and it's just pretty devastating not being able to do it, or having to really work out how to adapt things to try and do it, when sometimes you just want to go out and do what other people are doing without having to, think about it in so much detail.
The worst thing about having EDS for me is that I feel held back by it. I'm not able to do that much, really. In terms of my energy levels, I can't get much done in a day, and I have lots of things that I want to do and lots of ideas, but I've really had to slow down over the last few years, and that's quite hard to deal with. I'm 29 years old and I feel like an old lady because I'm just so sore and so tired all the time. Sometimes that really gets to me because I feel like I don't always feel like myself anymore, because I feel like I used to be so vibrant and full of life, and I don't feel like that anymore. I used to be this girl that would go and dance all night at a party or a gig or whatever, and now I have to plan around the fact that I can't really stand up for that long. I have to skip the support bands at gigs and stuff, and that's sad to me because that's never who I was before. So that's the most difficult thing for me is having to sort of compromise on what I want to do and what I'm able to do.
The worst thing about having EDS is that it's constant, that it's 24/7, that you don't get 1 minute not in pain or not with one problem or one symptom. I just wish I could have 1 minute not in pain, not struggling, know what it's like to walk, to go to the loo, to eat properly. That's, I think, the hardest thing about having EDS.
That's a really hard question. And at times I would say the incredible amounts of pain that I'm in. But I think the worst thing about having EDS is that it has stolen my life. And I feel like I've always, virtually most of my life now, felt like I'm watching the world out of a window and not fully participating in it. I'm not fully part of it. And I think about what life I could have had, all the things I wish I could have done that I wasn't able to because of EDS, because of my poor health, just didn't allow it. And it's just constantly living in almost a state of mourning, a state of grief for what you've lost. And it's just, I try not to think about it too much. It's always like there, circling on the edge of consciousness. I try not to think about it too much because it is utterly soul destroying to think about everything that this condition has taken away from me, has robbed me of all the years that have gone and all the years in the future, all the things that I won't be able to do, the things I won't be able to experience because of it. It's really hard to live with. It is the hardest part for me of having it.
Possibly not being able to use my degree. I was going to do a really physical thing, which I love doing, and I now can't do it because of the aforementioned wheelchair and not being able to get down into a hole and dig.
I think the worst thing about having EDS is the way that it does affect your life. Nothing's normal. Well, it's normal for us, but not for anybody else. And you can't really plan anything because it's such an unpredictable condition. So you don't know from 1 minute to the next how you're going to be. It literally can be that unpredictable. over the years, I've lost a lot of friends that way, because where we've had to cancel events and like weddings and christenings and other celebrations, and in the end people actually stop inviting you because I don't think they think you're going to come. But the truth is, we'd like to still be invited, because if we can go, then we will. And I think that's really the worst thing about living with EDS, is that it's how other people react to you as well. You just want them to treat you normally, because you want to still be able to live as normal a life as possible. And the other thing is, like, my job, I used to work as a special needs teacher, and I loved my job. And that is something that we can't do. We can't just go to work. We can't just get up, get dressed and go out the door, go shopping and do all those things. They're all the things that you take for granted. We have to plan every minute of our day. And as I said, sometimes you wake up, well, that's if you've managed to sleep, because it's really difficult to sleep with EDS. The pain, the chronic fatigue, when you're really tired but your mind's still awake. So, yeah, you sometimes wake up, or you've been awake all night, you've made plans, and then you have to change them, cancel them again and again. And I think that's really the worst thing about living with it.
The worst thing about having EDS is the lack of understanding and knowledge out there. The lack of assistance. Even my surgeon says, you need some more help. And I do. I'm hoping to get into a clinic in Toronto at some point or another. The worst thing about having EDS is that part of it. And I wish that there was more knowledge and more resources out there. Because sometimes I'm like, okay, is this EDS or is it something worse? I don't know.
The worst part of EDS is not being understood. Doctors not understanding or knowing about EDS, looking it up in my appointment or asking me how to spell it, telling me, you can't have EDS, that's so rare. I guess I'm rare too. So that's the worst part, is just the lack of knowledge and awareness and understanding of what EDS is and how much it really truly impacts every moment of my life and who I am.
Next question is, has EDS brought any positives to your life? And this might seem like a bit of a strange question, but I think it's really important that, as well as focusing on like the negative stuff, to also think about what positives it brings. And for me, it has brought positives, definitely. It has allowed me to meet a lot of my friends. So a lot of my friends I have met through support groups, online forums, that kind of thing. And I would never have met these people if I didn't have EDS, and so I'm really, really grateful in that respect that it has allowed me to do that, because I've met some amazing people and I have some really fantastic friends through it. It has also allowed me to, I think, to be more grateful for the little things and to appreciate the little things more, because you can't necessarily do as much. You really, really appreciate like every little thing. So for example, having a shower, for most people that is just a normal daily thing that you have to do. But when you've got a chronic illness, it's something that you can't always do very often. So I find that when I have a shower, I appreciate it so much more, because it's something that I am not usually able to do, you know, like every day. Or going outside and just feeling the sun on your face, or seeing a flower and things like that. It just makes you notice those little things and feel grateful for those little things more. So I'm really like appreciative of it giving me like that kind of perspective. I think those are probably like the most positive things. I guess I think it's made me kind of, I don't know, like stand up for myself more, because over the years you have to become your own advocate, and when you're not getting any support, when people don't necessarily believe you, including medical professionals, you're having to really like stand up for yourself and to do research and to, you know, put it to them and get them to listen to you. And certainly like when I was at school, I would never do that. I was really shy and yeah, just didn't want to talk to anybody. And having EDS and being more unwell has definitely helped me to learn how to stand up for myself a bit more, and how to speak for myself, and how to be my own like champion, I guess, and to make sure that I'm being listened to. So I have learnt things, and I have learnt a lot of like positive stuff from the EDS as well.
There are positives, definitely. I feel like I've learnt so much, you know, even in the last few months since my diagnosis. I've had to learn to prioritise myself and put my needs first and look after myself instead of just treating myself like an afterthought. You know, I've really had to learn not to push myself too hard, and how important it is to just take care of myself and my well-being. I've learned to ask for help when I need it. That was something that I really struggled with before. I think I used to just try and carry the weight of the world on my shoulders and do too much, whereas now I'm having to sort of acknowledge my limits and ask for help when I need it. I've found a community online, the EDS community. That's a real positive, finding people that I can connect with like that. It's also brought me really close to some of my friends in real life as well. I've got a few friends that have other chronic illnesses, and just having people that understand what it's like living in pain and living with chronic fatigue is just so important, and it just really cements a friendship and brings you really close together. Another positive is that I really appreciate what I am able to do. I think because EDS is such a varied condition, and I know how different things could be for me, you know, I'm still able to walk without mobility aids. I go for a run occasionally, and I'm just so grateful to be able to do those things. While I'm out running, I'm just thinking about how happy I am that I can do it, and how grateful I am that I can do it. And I think if I didn't have EDS, I think I would take that for granted. It's helped me reevaluate what's important in my life, because I have such a limited amount of energy. I've really had to prioritise, and that account, you know, that goes for the day-to-day little things, but also the bigger picture as well, of like, well, what am I gonna focus my life on? What's important to me? I don't have energy to waste on things that I don't care about. Another little positive as well is that I have super soft skin, which is quite nice. When I was at school, one of my friends used to put water on my arm and stroke my forearm because she said it felt like a dolphin.
But has EDS brought any positives to my life? Well, yes, it has. 100%. You know, there comes a lot of difficulties with it, but within that, I've also had opportunities in my life that I wouldn't have had if I had not become ill, if I'd not started using a wheelchair, if I'd not started having to rely on tubes to do things that my body doesn't do itself. That then leads me on to be able to understand all of these problems that then I can help other people. I do lots of blogging and writing and videos myself, and through that you can get messages from other people going, do you know what, your post, your video, your message made me feel like I wasn't alone, that I can achieve things, that I can still have a life beyond EDS. I found some of my best friends through EDS, and yes, we have that in common, but that's one thing of so many things we have in common. I've done more public speaking, sharing my story. I have Willow, who's my assistant's dog, who changes my life by helping me get undressed, helps with the washing, fetching items, getting my medication, alerting to when I'm unwell. And I would have never had a dog in my life, let alone an assistant's dog, if I hadn't have got unwell. And I've done things like adaptive sports, from skiing to basketball to different types of yoga and gentle fitness. And through that I found friends again. And you know what illness gives me is it gives me a drive to live my life even more to the full, to go out there and to grab life. and to make every single moment count.
I feel like with this question, I ought to say something about, oh, it allowed me to meet all sorts of brilliant people that I wouldn't have done otherwise, or it's, I don't know, given me a sense of compassion or empathy that I wouldn't have had otherwise. But honestly, that is just all rubbish. And no, there is not a single positive that I can take from having EDS. It has brought nothing good to my life, because I could still have, I'm fairly sure I'd have still been as empathetic or compassionate or whatever as I am now, or would have had the capability of being. And just all the years and years of pain and suffering and struggling, it just outweighs so much any kind of tiny positives you can see in it. And just, I want to be positive and come up with something positive and good to say, but honestly there isn't any. It has ruined my life.
It's really difficult to say. I was very symptomatic from very young. So I had, one of my teachers saw me dislocate my ankle when I was about 10, and she called me in, like, I was carried out of the playground, and they were really worried about me, as they really should have been. But I was so calm because it had happened so many times. I couldn't understand why everyone was so worried, because it was just a normal thing. And so I know that I was dislocating very young and very disastrously. So I don't really have a before like a lot of people have. I don't have a time when I wasn't symptomatic, where I didn't have issues. So the main thing has really been that when I didn't know what I had, when it was just a thing, so because everyone else seemed to be handling it so much better. Why could they handle pain and not me? Why could they handle walking when it was such agony? Like, what was their secret? And it turned out the secret was the fact that they weren't dealing with pain or dislocations or anything. The secret was that they weren't dealing with anything. I was just dealing with a lot more than them, which is why I had the issues. And that brought a lot of relief. And I guess also understanding for a lot of that. And also I met my best friend through an EDS thing, and we're so similar, and we never would have met if it hadn't been for EDS. And it's also that I can now help people. So I do a lot of things like how to choose your uni if you're disabled, how to survive uni if you're disabled, and stuff like, hey, you've got to make sure that the halls are good for you, that the course setup is right for you. If you need to be in lessons because it's so hard for you to work on your own, then you need to make sure that your course is set up like that and stuff like that. And also talk directly with teachers about how to help their students the best and stuff like that. So it's really sort of the fact that I get to help people now more directly than I otherwise would do.
The most positive thing that living with Ehlers-Danlos has brought to my life is all the amazing friends that I've met. As I've said, I have lost a lot of friends, but I've made new friends, and they're people that live with EDS or other chronic conditions, so they understand what it's like. You know, if you can't make it, if you call and say, you know what, I'm going to be late, or we're not going to be able to come today, or just people that I even talk to online that I've never met in person. But it's like we talk about things that I probably wouldn't even talk to some of my friends I've known for years, just because you're living in the same circumstances, living with the same condition or similar conditions. And they're just some of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life, and I'm really proud to know them all. Another positive thing is my Christian faith. Through my illness, I found my faith, and that has given me the strength to keep going over the years. I know that without that I wouldn't have got through everything that I have. And at church, my church family, they're all there for you, to pray with you, to talk with you. And also I enjoy praying with other people, and I sing in the worship group now, and it's something that I didn't imagine I'd get back to doing. So that's a really big positive for my life. It's also the strength that it's given me, physical and mental strength over the years, because when you live for so many years with chronic illness and chronic pain, it does really take it out of you, but it also builds up this inner strength, and I think it's an inner strength that you can't get in any other way. It's something that's almost special, and I see it in other people living with chronic illness, and I see this inner strength that is just unbelievable, and that is really one of the big positives. And also with Ehlers-Danlos, I'm always told that I don't look the age I am, and it's to do with the lack of collagen, so you don't get wrinkles. Your skin's very soft and velvety. I didn't like it when I was younger, growing up, because I never looked my age, and it was always up getting asked for my ID. But now I think it's brilliant. I think you've got to try and have a positive outlook on your life, even more so when you're living with chronic illness, because otherwise you could just end up sitting there and lying there and doing nothing, and that's not how I want to live my life. So it's not easy, but every day when I can, I try and do as much as I can, even if they're just little things, and then you actually feel like you've got some life, and that's very important.
Some positives that have come out of having Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is the walking aid that I use. I use what's called an A-linker, and it is a walking bike. Excuse my messy place, but this is her over here. I will show you how I get on. It's pretty wonderful. I use it for pretty much to get around for my daily activities, or daily errands, and to get around. I have a wheelchair over in the corner over there, and my cane is over here. The community that I've gained through the A-linker has been an incredible positive. I can't say enough about these wonderful people. And the people that I've met along my journey who share stories and who have gone through what I've gone through, and we've all doubted ourselves, and we can lean on one another to build each other up. That is a positive that has come out of all of this. I've also learned how to use the social media, which is great. So I'm kind of using a crutch as much as I can, or a cane around the house right now, because I'm 11 weeks out from my osteotomy. And yeah, I'm still healing.
The positive side of EDS is the community. Finding other people who get it is amazing. You have to be flexible, pun slightly intended, with EDS. You have to learn to go with the flow. There are days where I have to wear all my braces and can't walk very far, and then there are days where I'll go kick my soccer ball and have a great time. And it's just, that's my EDS. It's up and down. And it's taught me to be more flexible.
And then the last question is, why is raising awareness so important to you? For me, raising awareness is important for a few reasons. Firstly, because I think it's helpful for other people to just understand a bit more about it. It is a pretty much invisible condition. You know, you look at me now and you probably couldn't tell that I have it. And so it can be quite difficult for people to understand, and it's, you know, it's a really complex condition and I don't even understand it, but so yeah, it's hard for people to understand it. So I think in a general sense, raising awareness is helpful to just, help people to understand it a bit more and to hopefully, you know, be a bit more empathetic to you when you're perhaps struggling, and you're not constantly having to like explain it to them. I think it's also important to raise awareness because there will be a lot of people out there who are unwell but don't have a diagnosis yet, and they may watch a video like this and think, oh, I've got a lot of those symptoms, perhaps this is something that I could talk to my doctor about. So the more awareness is raised, the more people will know about it, and hopefully the more people will get the diagnosis that they need. And then lastly, I think raising awareness is important to raise awareness in the medical profession, because one of the problems I think that stops people getting diagnosed is that there is so little education for medical professionals about EDS. I think people are trying to improve that, but I don't think that medical professionals in their sort of general training get taught much, if anything, about EDS. So I think it's important to raise awareness in there as well, because, you know, your GP is the first person you're going to come to, and if they don't know anything about EDS, you're unlikely to get a diagnosis. So it helps for them to understand it. It also helps if you are in hospital and you're being looked after by nurses and healthcare assistants and other doctors, for them to know what EDS is and to understand how it affects you, because that will improve the care that they're able to give you. So for me, raising awareness is incredibly important for so many reasons.
Raising awareness is important because it's such a poorly understood condition. Like, even in the medical community, I think it's really hard for some people to get diagnosis, and even once they've got the diagnosis, sometimes the support is not that good. I consider myself lucky for the support that I've had. Like, I couldn't fault my physio at all. I'm really grateful for that, but that's not always the case for people. There are lots of doctors that haven't heard of EDS. Also, in the wider population, not many people have heard of EDS, and there's probably a lot of people out there that have EDS and don't know they have it, and are struggling to get a diagnosis and wondering what's wrong with them. I also think there's kind of a lack of understanding of the sort of unpredictability of the condition. I once had someone speak to me about someone that they knew who had EDS, and they didn't know that I had it when they were telling me this, and they were saying that this other person was faking it because they didn't have to use their wheelchair all the time. And comments like that are not unusual, and I think if there was just a wider understanding, and not just of EDS, of other sort of invisible illnesses and other conditions, I think it would just be better for everyone if we all understood each other a lot better and had a bit more compassion. I think the world would be a better place.
Raising awareness is important to me because EDS isn't that well understood, and it's not well enough educated to the whole world. And the more people understand it, the less time it will take people to get diagnosed. You know, being told it's in your head, you're going mad, it's just anxiety, it really affects your mental health. You know, you think then, am I actually going mad? And then when someone finally diagnoses you, you're like, wow, it's such a relief. But I want others to know that they're not alone. That yes, this is a big thing, but we are all different. We may have the same condition, but we are all different in how it affects us, the severity, any other secondary conditions. We're not all the same. So just because I've ended up needing some tubes doesn't mean you will. And you might have something that I don't have, and that's really important to remember. And it can be managed with the right treatment and care, sometimes medication, sometimes intervention, sometimes not, but it can be managed. And I want people to know that they're not alone, that even when you have bad days, it feels like it's never going to end, you will have good days as well. And I'll finish with a quote that I love. Every day may not be good, but there is something good in every day, however small.
Raising awareness is important to me because it can help so much for people to understand, to know, to be aware of what people with EDS and other chronic conditions have to go through. And it's only through them being aware of it that things can get better. Things like infrastructure, adaptions, just, like wheelchair ramps into shops, the most simple things like that are a complete difference to us, whether we can go in or out of a place, actually go to a place. The understanding that there are ambulatory wheelchair users, that if someone is in a wheelchair and then stands up, it's not praise Jesus a miracle, it's a perfectly normal thing to happen. And the people close to me, my friends and my family, having a greater awareness of my health, my condition, my limitations, helps me so much. I can worry less that about everything. Just people knowing, being aware, understanding is just important in every aspect of the illness.
I guess one of the big things is how some doctors have treated me. So they've actively made me worse, or actively stopped giving me a medical help that could have stopped pain, stopped more issues, because I was just a young girl who didn't present normally. So people with EDS tend not to present normally because, hey, we're in pain a lot and we dislocate a lot, so we're used to random things happening, so we don't go into any screaming and crying, even though we're still in the same amount of pain and issue as the person next to us who is. It's also just an understanding on a basic societal level that just because I'm young doesn't mean I can't be sick. A lot of people have weird misconceptions about the fact that you can either be a very young kid with it or you have to be over 70, like there's no middle ground. And if you are, then something must have been catastrophic to happen to you, and it's caused a lot of times when I felt really unsafe and scared because people will run up to me and ask me what happened. Just as a society really of just sort of understanding better for kids as well, because again I was very sick as a kid, and we look back now and a lot of the issues I had were big red flags for EDS, and if it had just been known a bit more, or it had just been aware, maybe I wouldn't be in the state I'm in because I could have had help earlier, if that makes any sense at all.
Raising awareness of EDS, Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, is really important to me because it's still too rarely diagnosed. Symptoms are missed and people suffer for years and years just being wrongly or misdiagnosed, being told a lot of the things I was, that it's all in your head and oh, it's just panic attacks, oh, you've got an eating disorder. You know, this shouldn't still be happening. People should be diagnosed at a younger age. The younger, the better. Our son was diagnosed at the age of 5. Once I was diagnosed, we knew he'd got the symptoms. And that's made a big difference to his life. There's not a cure for EDS, but you can treat the symptoms and you can try and stop them from progressing as quickly as they do if left untreated. So that's why we need to raise as much awareness as possible. It is one of the most neglected conditions, they say, that there is. You know, we are medical zebras. They say that they teach medical students to look for the simplest conditions, but they're the horses. But they have to remember that zebras do exist. Zebras are, in the medical terms, rarer conditions. Hypermobility, EDS, is actually, out of the 13 types of Ehlers-Danlos, the most common one. And it's actually not that rare, but it's just rarely diagnosed. And that means we suffer more than we need to. Complications. I've got so many complications that didn't need to happen that I now have to live with. And I want to stop that happening. So please help us to raise as much awareness as possible. It's so, so vital that we do this.
I want to thank everybody for watching my video. I think bringing awareness to Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is incredibly important. Sometimes it's invisible and sometimes it's not. Sometimes invisible illnesses aren't so invisible. I mean, if you separate me from my mobility aids, maybe it's not so visible, but as soon as I start to move, you're gonna know. It's like having a house being built out of Elmer's glue instead of nails. That's what living with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome is like. I have braces for my thumb, my wrist, my knees, my hips, my back. I wear a permanent mouthpiece so I don't grind my teeth so much. And the digestive issues are completely insane. And we're still trying to figure them out. Other than that, I just want to say thanks. Thanks for having me. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, I'm Kaylee Girl or Love Me Not on Instagram. And my name is spelled really weird. It's Ceilidh. And yes, it's pronounced Kaylee. Hugs and love. Hugs and love. Hugs and love, everybody.
Spreading awareness is so important to me because we can't get help if we don't know what is going on. Doctors can't help us if they don't know about EDS. Our families and friends can't help us. We can't help ourselves. I no longer feel like I'm a total crazy person because my body is dysfunctioning in every which way it chooses at any given time. And now that I have a name for that, now that I understand what is going on, it just makes a big difference. It makes a big difference to know, to have a name, to have resources, to see other people who look like you and deal with what you deal with. That's why it's so important.
So those are our answers to all of the questions. I really hope that hearing from lots of different perspectives has helped you to understand all the different ways that EDS can affect people. If you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel. Also hit the notification bell. That means you'll get notified every time I upload a video so you don't miss anything. Leave me a comment, let me know if you have EDS, answer some of the questions for you, or if you haven't got EDS, what have you learnt from this video? Has it helped to raise some awareness and to help you understand it a bit more? Also let me know if there's any other videos that you'd like to see me do, whether they are about EDS, physical health, mental health, or something completely different. Let me know because it's really helpful to hear what kind of things you'd like to watch. Also come and give me a follow on social media. My links are in the description, but I will pop them up here as well. I'm mainly on Instagram and Twitter, and especially on Instagram I tend to post very regularly to my stories and stuff. So if you want sort of day-to-day stuff, come and follow me over there and say hello because it'll be lovely to see you. And I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye!